Hi, sorry for the delay, everyone.
Good evening, Leslie.
How you doing?
I'll jump right into it. Thank you.
Sorry.
With quorum form, we'd love to call to order the special virtual meeting Monday, February 8th, 2021 of the Architectural Design Review Board. Our first agenda item is the pre-application review of the proposed catering and restroom buildings at Stoneacre Farm. Properties located at 381 North Main Street, Stonington. And the applicant and owner is Stoneacre Farms, LLC. Jane or Julia, whoever would love to start, please go ahead.
I will launch in. May I share my screen? I don't know if I need permission. Oh, it looks like it's letting me.
Yeah, you can just do it.
Okay, perfect. Oh, there we go. Great. So I'm joined tonight by Jane Miser, who you heard from a couple of minutes ago, of Stoneacres Farm, and Adrian Nile of Reed Hildebrand Landscape Architects. They are both here, and please jump in at any time, Adrian and Jane, if you'd like to. I will do the bulk of the presenting, and then we can all add in. So this is a portion of Stoneacres Farm. To situate you, this is Route 1, and oh gosh, sorry, I don't know why it's zipping around like that. Route 1 and then North Main Street. The site that we're going to be talking about is sort of in the core of the campus. And before I talk about the two buildings, I just want to talk about their surroundings a little bit. There is an existing field to the south of our proposed site that is used for tents for events, typically weddings. To the north of our proposed site, there is an existing field that is used. You can see it slightly here. There is an existing stone construction that's really an outdoor cooking facility, an outdoor kitchen with ovens and grills. And both the 85th Day Food Community and the Yellow Farmhouse Education Center, which is right here, use this field for events, for oyster festivals, for Jacques Pepin's birthday celebration, for fundraisers. And currently this, they call it the Fire Beast, but the Fire Beast is the anchor on that side of the farm stand field. And then the Stoneacres Farm Stand is the anchor on the opposite side. The third place to talk about are the existing formal gardens, which are right here. And those are again used for weddings or other events. And often, the ceremony begins in the existing formal gardens, and then people meander through the property to the tented field here. And if the event is something that has food involved, there is a rented catering tent located roughly here, and a rented porta potty building roughly here. And what Stoneacres has identified, and we were touching upon this a little bit before the meeting, is there are capital campaigns in mind, and they're just trying to figure out what the sort of most immediate needs are and be very strategic about how they spend money and where they place facilities. So the weddings, the events from the 85th Day Food Community and the Yellow Farmhouse Education Center have all brought up two deficits right now in the campus. And that is one, a more permanent place where caterers and the 85th Day or other Yellow Farmhouse can either prepare food for weddings, demonstrate teaching opportunities within the catering pavilion, and also prepare food more more formally than you might at the Fire Beast. And second is an accessible restroom that serves the needs of events in the wedding tent field, in the farm stand field, and in the formal gardens. So that's the sort of broader context of the project. And then zooming in a little bit, this is again that same farm stand field. So here's the farm stand, here's the Fire Beast that I was mentioning, and then the formal gardens here. There's an existing tractor path that I'll show you a few photos in a moment, but it could be a little bit cleaned up, and Adrian can speak more articulately about that than I, but the intention is to really to spruce up this western section of the farm stand field by fixing up the tractor path, by opening up an opening in this existing stone wall to bring people from the wedding tent field to the bathroom area, and by nestling the catering building within this existing stone wall. And the catering building in particular has two challenges because it sits between this farm stand field and the wedding tent field. And the catering building wants to be quiet as it relates to the wedding tent field because you're coming to a wedding not to celebrate food necessarily, but to celebrate the two people who are joining it at that event. But on the farm stand side, it really is all about food and the sort of celebration of the production of the food within that catering pavilion, or catering building. So this building really has two attitudes. And the bathroom building similarly does, where you have a very formal garden here, a 5-foot stone wall, and the bathroom building also wants to present a quieter face to this more formal area, and then again open up to the farm stand field in front of it. So this is to give you a little bit more context. This is the fire beast that I mentioned. There are 2 grill areas. There are, I think, 3 ovens embedded within it. It's really pretty amazing. It looks like a pile of rocks, but it's pretty articulated. And then this is the farm stand building that I mentioned before, and then the yellow farmhouse education center beyond. This is the existing opening between the stone wall that's on the southern edge of the farm stand field, and this is that tractor path that I hinted at. And then this, you can just see, this is a wedding tent that was put up for an event, and then this is a catering tent that was put up behind it. So we're hoping to eliminate catering tents and replace them with a more permanent catering building. And then I also mentioned that we're introducing a very thin 3-foot path along the stone wall between the formal gardens and the bathroom building, and so that would happen right here. And then now I'm just going to walk you through the catering building. So again, we're right here. So the plan is going to flip. So north, which is now on this side of the sheet, will be on the top of the sheet in the next drawing. That's not true. Let me show you this one first. Adrian had a brilliant idea when we were on site in the fall with how to connect through the formal gardens and to the bathroom building. And we had talked sort of vaguely about putting an opening in the stone wall. And when we were there, he said, well, we should really line it up with the formal arcade that runs through the formal gardens here. And so that there's an existing gate at the very beginning of the formal gardens, and then this path that bifurcates the gardens. And then he proposed that we cut through the wall right there. And I think that's a really beautiful move. So you'll be able to see through the formal gardens to the far farm stand field in the distance. So that's that. And now I'll talk about the catering building. So just for reference, this is the farm stand building. And I'm showing this because in terms of materiality, we're really trying to take this farm stand building and strip it down a little bit, but this really is the inspiration for many of the materials in both the catering building and the bathroom building. So here we are, we're here. Again, north is here right now, and it will be at the top of the page on the next sheet. So the catering building. On the back side, which is the south side, which faces the wedding tent field, we're really proposing a very quiet elevation. It just has 2 barn doors, no windows, no openings. The intention is that these doors can be left open or closed during an event, but you're really not going to be seeing too much of what's happening inside of it. And on the north side, which faces the farm stand field, this is where all the action is happening. And there are 2 large windows on either side of 2 oversized sliding barn doors. There's a storage room in the back because caterers typically are going to bring their own equipment and sometimes even their own tables. So we're sort of showing a generic layout, but we're providing plumbing and we're providing power, but a lot of this equipment is actually not permanently there. It depends on what the caterer needs. And then there's an existing walk-in cooler in the carriage house on the property now, and so the intention is to bring that walk-in cooler here so that there's cold storage in the catering building as well. And then other than that, it's just, very simple, easy to maintain, poured concrete floors, concrete, 12-inch concrete curbs on all the partitions so they can hose everything down. These drawings the drawings have developed a little bit more since then. This isn't shown here, but there are floor drains everywhere. So the idea is these buildings are just tough little buildings that can put out a lot of good food and not require too much in terms of maintenance. This is a section through the catering building. And again, looking at that farm stand building in terms of hints for the materiality that we'd like to match the vertical siding. I measured it a few days ago. It's a 1x6 beadboard. I think it's pretty simple to match it. We may prefer to not have the beads and just have the board, but that's, we'll come back to you in a month or two with all of the material selections. But the intention is to echo the farm stand building. And then the roof plane is just a very simple shed roof with thinner tapered overhangs on the front and the back and the sides. And again, this is the view from the wedding tent field. So, the sort of low point of the roof plane, 2 doors that would open and close. And other than that, a very blank elevation. And then facing the farm stand field, these 2 oversized barn doors, which the track extends for the full width of the windows. And so these barn doors can open and really let you see through into the catering kitchen and out through the rear to the wedding tent field. So there's a real transparency through the core of the building, which the bathroom building echoes as well. And then also just visibility into the kitchen space so that the activity of the catering kitchen spills out into the landscape in front of it and also connects to the fire east in front of it. And then now I'll finish talking about the bathroom building and then you can ask questions maybe about all of it, if that makes sense. So now looking at the bathroom building, and here the plan will stay oriented the way that it is. So this is here and it will stay east. So the bathroom building has, like the catering building, sort of a breezeway through the middle. The women's restroom is on the right-hand side, and there we have 1 handicapped accessible stall, 2 smaller stalls. And then in the front of the bathroom area, there's a sort of a sink and a sort of prep makeup area because this will be used by brides and bridal parties. So we wanted to be able to accommodate several people getting ready for an event. Station on the side. And then on the opposite side, the men's restroom with, again, an accessible stall, and then 2 urinals, one of which will be accessible sink. I briefly mentioned the Yellow Farmhouse Education Center, and the bathroom building is set within their teaching gardens, which again was a really beautiful idea of Adrian's. And what we wanted to do was carve out some storage space for them as well. So there's a garden closet on this end of the bathroom buildings for things like spades, watering cans, rakes, that kind of thing. We talked about collecting roof runoff and also supplementing the educational programming with collecting gray water and using it to water the gardens. I don't think we're going to do that, at least now. It may happen at some point, but the next time you see this, that won't be on the drawings. And then a small supply closet tucked in on the inside of the breezeway. And then within the breezeway, the idea really is that this could be a spillover space on a very busy night. You might come out here and wash your hands and go back to the wedding. It also could be a place where students who are taking part in a Yellow Farmhouse Education Center event are washing off the carrots that they just pulled out of the garden or filling up their buckets to go water the flowers. So this space is really sort of an in-between maintenance space, and then the bathrooms are on either side. And in form, it's, not identical, obviously, because the proportions are different, but the 2 buildings really talk to one another. So the pitch is the same. On the back side of the bathroom building, which is between the bathroom building and the stone wall and the opening through the stone wall, we've got a deeper overhang, again, imagining that particularly if it's a rainy day and they are having an event, this becomes another place where people can stand and gather before they go into the bathrooms or just have a conversation on their way to and from the formal gardens to the wedding tent area. And then on the east side of the bathroom building, a 3-foot overhang which matches the catering building. So when you're in the farm stand field, those two buildings really have the same relationship to you and to each other, which we thought was important. And I should say too, Job Moore is he was the architect of the master plan and worked very closely with Reed Hildebrand, and he has had some input on these buildings. So the buildings have been a really iterative process between Reed Hildebrand, Job's office, Stoneacres, and myself. And then this is a section cut the other way, just looking at the storage closet and the door to the bathroom. And we're really trying, the buildings will be heated and cooled, but we're trying to take advantage of passive ventilation and cooling as much as we can. So there are windows set at strategic spots to promote cross ventilation. There will be ceiling fans in the bathroom building and in the catering building. And similar to the catering building, the simple barn doors that will just slide and leave the breezeway open. I think, 9 times out of 10, these doors are going to be open. But the building can be winterized and shut down with those barn doors. And then this is the bathroom building facing into the farm stand. So again, those taller barn doors. And I think we can zoom back out. So that really, I hope that is enough of a description right now. And if there are any questions or any comments for any of us, we'd be happy to answer them.
Well, thank you, Julia. Appreciate the overview and all the level of detail. I think the two proposed structures, in my opinion, strike the right scale and are very supportive of the overall character and tone of the farm. So I'm very excited to see them. And you've done a thorough job, and I really don't have much in the way of comments other than supportive ones saying, I think it's terrific.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from board members?
Leslie Driscoll, I have a question. When I look at the plan view of the bathroom building, is there a window between that trough sink and the men's room, or is that a clear
There
story?
is, but the window sill is at 6'8", so you can't. No one can see between the two.
So it's up there.
Yeah.
Story
Yeah.
window. And then what's the septic on this site? Is it a well and septic, or is it tied into town?
No, so we're putting in a well and putting in a septic system. And actually Luero Engineers they're the civil engineer on the job, so they're putting that together.
All right. Yeah, I think everything looks really nice. I like how you've lined up sight lines and kind of an enfilade with the doors on these buildings, and then also in the gardens through the formal garden. I think that was just really beautiful way to carry people through the landscape, and these buildings kind of peek out and then you come across them, and it's a nice layout.
This is Jenny. Also agree with everything. I was thinking just for identification purposes, maybe just one thought would be to have the two buildings slightly different tint or shade of the same color, just so people can easily, in their mind, which is which. Just thought.
The Stoneacres yellow can sometimes be a little bit confusing on campus. Seeing that there's about 10 thank you for that.
That kind of got a little bit garbled, I think.
Jane, you had a bad echo at the end. You might have to.
Oh, I just said, thank you. I said sometimes all of the Stoneacres yellows of the building can be a little bit confusing on site. So thank you for that comment.
Well, if there are no additional comments or questions, we can move on to the next agenda item. Thank you. Well done.
All right. Thank you. We'll be back when the drawings are complete. Thanks very much.
Terrific.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody. Have a good rest of your night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next agenda item. Pre-application review of the proposed Brookside Phase 2 multifamily residential development. Proposal consists of 130 units in 2 buildings with associated parking and landscaping. Property is located at 111 South Broad Street in Pawcatuck. Development is proposed as a mixed income development under CE Connecticut General Statute Section 8-30G. Assessors Map 37, Block 1, Lot 1A. Applicant is Gilbane Development. All
Good
right.
evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Thorpe. My name for the record is Bill Sweeney. I'm a partner and a land use attorney with the law firm of Tobin Carberry in New London. And as always, it's a pleasure to be here before you tonight. This evening, I represent Gilbane Development Company, which is a national real estate developer based just over in Providence, Rhode Island. Gilbane Development is also a subsidiary of Gilbane Incorporated, which, if you're familiar with them, is one of the bigger construction and real estate firms in the country. Gilbane Development specializes in a variety of different housing products, including student housing, market rate, and luxury multifamily residential, as well as affordable housing communities. They also do medical and mixed office facilities, professional offices, public-private developments, and other commercial developments as well. We're excited about this project that we're going to share with you tonight. My client has developed over 60 million square feet of real estate with a value in excess of $7.5 billion. And they're no strangers to the town of Stonington. Who's the CEO of the company, who's joining us tonight, back in 1980 developed the 160-unit Brookside Village affordable housing project on Route 1 in Pawcatuck, which has provided for the last 4 decades affordable quality housing for families and elderly. And that relationship has extended to the construction of Stonington High School, which Gilbane development was part of, and hopefully a second phase now of Brookside Village, which we're going to share with you tonight. We are here, as Mr. Thorpe indicated, prior to a formal application to the P&Z. This is a pre-application submission. We are intending in the coming months to submit to P&Z for a 130-unit mixed income affordable housing project. Again, that'll be submitted under Section 8-30G. And while Brookside Village Phase 2 will be an affordable development, it's going to be very different than Brookside Phase 1. It's going to be a different product altogether, and it's going to be targeted to a different group of residents. It's going to be constructed right next door, and in this case, right in front of Brookside Village. There's a large grassy field right along Route 1 across from the high school, where we're looking to site this project. As I shared with you previously, and I've been before you on 830G projects before, the projects that we're proposing are actually these mixed income projects allow you to have market rate units mixed with units that are rent restricted. And what that does is allow for a real diversity of residents, all of which have the same units, the same amenities in the same building or buildings. And from our perspective, that's going to provide a really inclusive project for Stonington. Some reasonably priced rental apartments for middle-class people, which are so badly needed in Stonington. So tonight, joining me on our team, Bob Gilbane, who's the founder and CEO of Gilbane Development. I have Chris and Joe DeHamel. They are our project engineering. I have Paul Azzarino, who's the project architect. with Azzarino Architects and Associates. And of course, I've got Elena Pascarella, who's our project landscape architect with Landscape Elements LLC. Our engineers are going to walk you through our concept site plan. And remember, this is still conceptual. We're very early in the design process, but they're going to focus on our proposed project layout, our on-site circulation, parking areas, amenity spaces, how it all fits in to the existing fabric of this part of Pawcatuck. Mr. Azzarino is going to discuss the architectural design concept for the project. He's going to review with you our floor plans, our elevations, and our proposed materials and colors. And then Ms. Pascarella will discuss the landscape design for the project. She'll review with you the various plantings that are being proposed. And again, we don't have an application pending before the P&Z Commission, but tonight is really an opportunity for the board to meet the developer and the developer to meet the board. We'll be back before you when we make our formal application, but we really wanted to take this opportunity not only to introduce ourselves and the project, but to get some early preliminary comment and feedback on our conceptual design. Now, saying that, I do want to remind the commission that this is going to be an 830G application, which is under Connecticut's Affordable Housing Appeals Act. And I think all of you know that the P&Z Commission has limited discretion in approving or denying these types of applications, and architecture is not something they can really consider. But that being said, we know the board, based on its past practice, is going to review this application like any other application that comes before it. They're going to make suggestions. They're going to issue a report, and we intend to make this as much as possible a friendly 830G application. And when I say that, a friendly 830G application, what I mean is we want to proactively address reasonable concerns and suggestions that the community has. And if it can work, we want to try to incorporate that into our design as we move forward. So to that end, certainly want to hear from you tonight. We want to hear your ideas, your concepts, your suggestions, and we want to have a dialogue about at least where we are at with the project at this time. So Joe's putting up our plans, which I hope you have a copy of already. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chris and Joe to sort of walk you through the intro to the plan. Thank you. Chris, I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Thank you, Attorney Sweeney.
I'm sorry about that. Someday I'll get used to this. So I'm Chris Duhamel, a professional engineer and land surveyor with Dupree Engineering. We have an office in Cranston and an office in Newport, but today we're sitting in our house in Westwood, Rhode Island on Elm Street. So it's a big advantage, these WebEx calls. The site is located, as Bill said, the site's located at 111 South Broad Street, Brookside Apartments. If we can go through the plans. Keep going. This is the cover sheet that shows the general location, the locus of the site. Go to the next plan. It'll show an aerial photograph and some of the significant features within the area of the Stonington High School. Is to the south, Stonington Police Department is to the south and west. It's right across, the site is right across the street from the VFW as a landmark, and Stonington Arms is to the north. This is a 27-acre site, which shown in red is the developable area, or the developed area, I should say, of 160 units that exist since 1980 that Bob Gilbane built 40 years ago. It's a mix of elderly and family affordable housing, Section 8 housing. The site that we're considering is the 3.2-acre grass area on the north side of South Broad Broad Street. It's serviced by public water, public sewer, a bus station is at the Brookside entrance. So we're really looking at this as an infill project, something that is not new clear cutting, something the urban core amenities already built into it. So this has a great advantage for an 830G project. We've done test holes. What you have in front of you is the is the green space. We've done test holes across the site. We haven't found any ledge. We found high water table to 2 to 3 feet in water table. And Paul Azanero is adjusting his design or not having any basements with his design for this. What also can be seen is the right of way of South Broad Street. This is proposed to have a new sidewalk designed for the Pawcatuck Sidewalk Improvement Project. It's the design currently is to have the sidewalk within the right of way, leaning from the north, traveling south, and then where the jog in the property boundary or the right of way boundary is, it has that bus loop. It's to have the sidewalk have a crosswalk where the bus loop comes in, and then the sidewalk along the boundary of South Broad Street. So it really within the property of Brookside. So it really creates kind of a hazardous design. And we looked at that closer, and we recognized that that bus really doesn't have a purpose, that buses can certainly access the existing stop now. So within our design, we're taking that bus loop out. We're having Elena do a nicer streetscape and a safer sidewalk continuing along the frontage of this Brookside Apartments. We'll have more details on that moving forward. I wanted to point that out very quickly. We can go to the next slide. This shows the existing zoning of the site that we're working with. With an 830G, we're going to have modifications to dimensional setbacks. Going to the next slide. It gets to the density of the proposed development and existing development, and the floor area ratio calculations are shown where the existing 160 units, how that would affect the density, the proposed 130 apartment buildings, how that affects the density. And long story short, the floor area ratio has, even after phase 2 is built, there'll be excess reserve that we're not utilizing at all. The mix of building types, unit types is provided. This was worked out closely with Paul Azanero and Bob Gilbane, identifying the needs that they wish to fulfill, the amenities that they are looking to include. Paul can get into this more, but it's amenities that are expected within the market that they're trying to hit. A pet salon, a fitness room, high-speed Wi-Fi, drop-off for Amazon, all the amenities that apartments in this market would be looking for. Moving on. Slide. This is the meat of the civil engineering work that we've done. We've taken the footprints that Paul Azanero has designed, and we've placed them on the site. The 130 units, we've calculated the amount of parking needed for the units that we're providing. We're providing for one space per unit and a minimum of one space per 4 units for a guest parking. The parking calculated was 162 units, given that standard. We're providing for 182 spaces rather, for parking. The parking is designed to have a loop through the site at the northeast corner of the site, a new access to South Broad Street, and that would loop around the buildings to Brookside Lane with the utilizing that existing roadway and the existing access. Again, the bus loop is being eliminated. The safety hazards being eliminated, and we're proposing that the sidewalk be continuous along the frontage of South Broad Street. The site has public water, which the fire chief, Chief Burns, has asked that it be looped to improve fire flow. It has public sewer that would be accessed off of South Broad Street. There is The stormwater on site would be treated within the pavement areas. It would be a underground stormwater retention area that would meet Connecticut DEP and Town of Stonington requirements for no increase in runoff for up to the 100-year storm. We would discharge to the southwest portion of the site. There are two 24-inch culverts that discharge across South Broad Street. We'll provide calculations that show the capacity of those culverts are not exceeded, and there will be continuous drainage from the site. I think I've hit on all the civil aspects at this point. Again, we're at the very beginning of the project. We're working with the town engineer, the Connecticut DEP, and water, fire, and sewer, and police will do the police safety at that point as well. But we're going to have a traffic study moving forward with the Planning and Zoning Commission. There's great sight distance on South Broad for the travel speeds witnessed. So we feel this is an optimum site for development of this 830G project. We can move on to the next slide. Bob is on mute. Bob, did you want to add to this? Bob, go back.
Yes, thank you, Chris. The one other thing I would point out is that the site has a change in topography. The upper portion of the site is about 38 feet above sea level, which is about 18 feet above the front parcel itself. So that's the only thing I would add. I think you did a great job on it. Thank you.
Yeah, to that point, the elevation views of the buildings is not as pronounced as those north of this site. We're not on a hill. We're actually in a low area, so we'll be building up slightly for drainage, but most of the elevations are fit with the 160 units that we're building next to.
You mean screening?
Yes. So we can go to the next slide, Joe, with Paul.
Okay, can you hear me all?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to, you can scroll through the slides as I'm talking, but I want to get some points across of really where we're coming from, some of the major issues that we're trying to accomplish. And I think once we go through the slides for more technical stuff, this will all come to be. First of all, I'm honored to be part of the process. Stonington has got a great ADRB, and you've set the bar high. And sooner or later, your neighboring communities will be at your level. And I appreciate all your time and seasoned professional opinions. It's very much appreciated from all of us. Really, truly. So the 130 units at a market rate in affordable apartments are presented with the Connecticut's 830G program. Bob Gilbane and his development staff, along with Chris Duhamel from Dupree Engineering, initially went through Bob's program. As you may know, it's a treat as an architect coming in early on the process, so we're not bound by predetermined footprints and square footages and parking counts. So we were able to initially help with the whole process, realizing what the primary objectives we're trying to achieve. And if you read the letter of intent, it goes into more in depth, but and I'll go through this very quickly. So So we're not held hostage anymore to our old HUD standards, and they were very mundane. Even if you were creative back in the day, you'd still end up with 3 double hung units facing the exteriors, and no matter how much you tried to play with these. But these programs are all now defunct. So we're in a total different era. So simply said, a new era in housing requires new design implementation. So just a few high points that are going to significantly help us along. The owner, Gilbane Development Company, is willing to provide a quality project that, in our case, a nationally recognized development has and will continue to be invest in Stonington's well-being. This is a major undertaking, and we have the great company to back this. Deliver project that is aesthetically and emotionally, that can emotionally come alive, offering a pleasing presence to the road, referred to as our Route 1 corridor. 3, massing that will offer us an opportunity for Stoning to uphold and respect our greatest New England's asset, its historical architectural vernacular. Okay, so that's kind of the feelings that we're going to, but how do we accomplish this? And bottom line, how do we go about this? So we realized a few years back, having worked with Stonington EDC before, your new PV5 offers us, increased densities, but we're not taking this to the maximum extremes. We're trying to come up with a good, happy medium, because we realize we do need higher density to make something like this work. So while we're citing and the placements of specific features, as one passes down the Route 1 corridor, these strategic areas complement each other, and yet they're not symmetrical, but there's glimpses of certain key components. We looked at corner views where the 2 buildings come somewhat closer, and then as you pull into Brookside Lane, all these things are moving and offering some consistency with the design. Probably the most significant design I know that anyone knows a little bit about architecture. You always hear the term form follows function. So I get it, but the bottom line, it still has to look good. So regionally, we live in a coastal environment, and we have flood zones to deal with. We have elevated structures. We're always fighting height limitations. So normally, what do we do to deal with that? So our first level becomes the base, and generally horizontal banding will separate that base, being the first floor. The middle segments offers us some variation that work together, as I mentioned before. And the upper floors, the buildings that we do around here, are always carved into the roof, so that we can take advantage of additional space, and that's basically what's traditional around here. When we do view a building like this, we do recognize with the roof configurations and the upper floor, we do realize that there's an end to it all. So when we take the base, the shaft, and the upper floor within the roof, it definitely ends it ends the height, and it definitely has good proportion to the road. And what Bob had mentioned earlier was the buildings in the back is significantly higher elevation. So on Elena's drawing, you'll see where the buildings merge, how the higher grade is keeps it knocks down the impact of the density that we created. That's basically where we're coming from and how this all gelled up. It is a pretty accurate rendition. We had come up with initially 5 unit types. If you want to pan down to the unit types, we have basically a 1 bedroom. We have 1 bedroom, 2 1-bedroom units, whether it's a straight front. I think it's go down to slide 21, please. So this is knowing what Gilbane has used in the past and what works for them. These square footages are what we consider very current. We don't need bigger units with the market value and even your average income. I mean, this is far from poverty housing. This is really middle class housing all day long. Kids coming out of college with decent salaries, trying to establish around here. So going from 1 bedroom unit, another bedroom unit with the fronts that are shifted to help me with the elevations. We have studio apartments that are kind of all merged together. They can be closed off, but the live work unit becomes very important in say a studio or a younger crowd. Then lastly, we have 2 bedrooms with 1 bath and 1 with 2 baths. And but the main thing is these things are all fitting into a grid to give us the elevations we're trying to promote. So the fronts, there's going to be tweaking throughout this with the fronts and glazing, but I think primarily that has been consistent with what Gilbane provides. They're numbered the same to their other units across the country, and I'm confident that these sizes are more than adequate. Some of the other amenities. Some of the other amenities that we're trying to incorporate, we've got coastal communities. So you're going to see bicycles, you're going to see kayaks, you're going to see paddle boards. We're coming up with areas where we haven't specifically cited those spots, but they'll be in the areas of the building that we can totally screen. We don't want the whole remaining open land to be a junkyard of all this recreational here and there. So that's going to be very well planned. There's going to be storage in the buildings for bikes. Bob had mentioned some of the pet spas that they have in the other facilities are better than the bathrooms. But just another current feature. So we, as you see the 3D modeling, this was done in an attempt to just show you the massing as I first mentioned. So this building being building 1, as we're driving towards the Stonington police station, that's further down on the right. We have a corner feature that we're starting to see the building between the 2 gables. That's our. This was really intended to get massing and fenestration down, but we'll be enhancing the front entry that's in the center of the gables. And as the building moves, The language is the same with building 2, if you want to go down to that one. The next couple slides. That is basically the view that we'll see from the Route 1 corridor heading towards the Stonington Police Station. So it's going to constantly evolve. And you can see the upper roof is hiding the top floor, the 4th floor. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's looking back. So the elevation that we see, that basically is between the parking lot to building 2, which is on the corner of Brookside. So next slide will show, the next slide will show, there we go. Next slide.
Bear with me for a second, Paul.
Okay. You told me to go quick. Okay.
Can you reshare it, Joe?
Yep. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay. Paul,
Yeah.
Paul, make sure that you talk about materials and colors.
Yep. I might be able to handle the share from my end.
Did you get?
Okay, we can just pan right through the whole our packet, and it'll go fairly quick, and I'll point out what we're dealing with. Okay, so building 1 is the larger building. Building 2 is on the corner, and that is stepped back so that we see the features of the building. If you want to go back to the start of the architecturals on the big floor plans, on start out with drawing, yeah, okay. I'm sorry, go back to the previous slide. Okay, so here you see what we're talking about before. We have the lower material. We're thinking horizontal plank of some sort. It could be simulate cedar, or it could be more of a weathered look. Some of the driftwood colors. The body would definitely be a clapboard type material. These are all longevity materials, and switching the texture up between clapboard, horizontal boards, and some shingles where some of the upper areas appear to be dormers would be a shingle material. The roof, we have some of the corner features could be a metal roof, and the rest of it could be regular architectural shingles. We do have some AZAC, and we have a lot of use of FIPON, meaning the architectural elements that'll stand out, particularly emphasizing soffit detailing, dental detailing. The banding that we see is multi-layered, 2 or 3 layers. We will have some railings, but a non-usable balcony. We'd hold it off about 1 foot just to show again some 3-dimensional interest. The next slide. This you can see the grid is set, and we're just taking and interchanging the units to make it all work. The cool thing about this is we have main entrance that, so that first center, almost, it's not a bridge effect, but it's glassed out enough where we're coming in the one end from the road where there's parking, and we're coming into the primary rear that it simulates the same. We have your control office. We have the community room. We will more than likely bring in the exercise center into this building, and all the main corridors and entrances are all secured. So there's a good deal of security. Next slide shows, and plenty of egress, no dead end corridors. Every one of the entrances are close to the parking areas, very close to the parking areas, so it makes it convenient. So even if you do not take the elevator, which is centrally located, the elevators aren't that much of a chore hitting first and second floor or even third floor. These units are matching up to help our elevations. Next slide. This is our typical section, keeping it as tight as possible. We have roughly an 8'6" floor to ceiling height. We have 20-inch floor and ceiling floor joists, and partial on the front. We're hiding all of our individual condensers. Every unit here is self-contained, electric, gas, and having its own HVAC system. Next slide is the units. Again, very typical. So that's profiles and all the similar materials. Colors aren't, the colors are not totally refined on our 3D here, but they will be all light in nature. And these models are not completed. I think the next time we all get together, we will merge the two buildings where they belong with the site and actually superpose actual seat these buildings properly to what's existing. And then all of Elena's work certainly helps improve the entire setting, complementing what we started. So,
Thanks, Paul. Elaine, do you want to go through these?
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I'm doing this dual mode video on the computer, and for some reason the computer audio is not working, so I'm giving you audio via phone. Basically, the landscape architectural approach looks to integrate these buildings into the fabric of the community along Route 1. I lived in Pawcatuck for a number of years. This was my back and forth go-to to get to a lot of places, so I'm familiar with the site. What we're doing is we're trying to provide a landscape frontage along South Broad Street with shade trees that are sustainable. They're either native trees or nativars, and we're familiar with the town of Stonington's list of approved trees, so these trees were selected from that list. They're also road salt tolerant trees, because we know the town does salt Route 1 quite a bit. Around the buildings, we're also providing shade trees, deciduous trees to reduce the heat island effect of the parking lot, to kind of help to relate the scale of those buildings to the surrounding site, which is relatively flat. And again, we've selected species of trees that are tolerant of road salt because the parking lots will need to be salted to keep them accessible through the winter. We're also providing around the buildings and elsewhere on the site a mix of smaller ornamental trees and shrubs to add seasonal interest and color. we've got a mix along the back parking lot between the phase 1 buildings and these newer phase 2 buildings. We're putting in a mix of evergreen trees and, again, deciduous shade trees. The Shade Trees Act to reduce and mitigate the heat island that comes from the parking surface. And with the evergreens, for those buildings in phase 1 that are really kind of tight to the parking lot, we're looking to provide more privacy for those residents between their backyards and the parking lot. We are demarcating the entrances with new entrance signage and some colorful landscaping. And we're including more shrub and ground cover plantings around existing low points and wet areas. Those are noted more along Brookside Lane. And we're also going to, based on our prior experience with the town of Stonington and the town engineer, we have a detail for root barriers to be installed around deciduous trees that are tight to sidewalks or tight to parking areas, but in particular, tight to any sidewalks that are within the development itself. And some of them will also be tight to that new proposed sidewalk that BL Companies is proposing for along Route 1. So we want to be sure that the tree roots are as far as possible from the sidewalk, but they're also have root barriers installed so they don't contribute over time to lifting up the sidewalk. And if you can flip to the next slide, please, Joe. That is the planting plan, which provides you with a detailed list of the different trees that will be used. If you can flip to the next slide, that's your detail sheet. In the lower left corner shows the root barrier. And the next slide, please, Joe. That's probably a better illustration of the plant material that we're proposing to use for deciduous trees, a mix of linden, honey locust, and sweet gum along the parking areas. And then elsewhere, some Japanese lilac, some witch hazel, some eastern redbud for the smaller trees, smaller ornamentals. We've got Kettler-eyed juniper and the giant arborvitae. I'm being tolerant of the fact that deer will come down to this area, so I'm utilizing material that is relatively deer resistant in that it's not browsed on hardly at all by deer. And then for the wet areas, you have black gum, the spice bush, inkberry, and some viburnums and a variety of grasses and sedge grasses that will work in those lower wet pockets. We haven't worked out all the details, but we do want the signage similar to what's in the lower left corner of this at the entrance areas, and that's the existing sign that's the entrance to Brookside Phase 1. Dumpster areas will have screening around them. The sidewalks or walkways will be concrete, but again, we'll ensure that root barriers are installed where necessary. And resident site amenities, which we haven't located on the plan, but we're planning to locate as we refine the design, would be kayak racks and bike racks. And if you can switch to the next slide, please, Joe. This is your elevation view that includes the landscaping, so you get a sense of what we're striving for in terms of when trees begin to mature. And I think that's the final slide. Is that correct? I think so. Yep. We do have a color rendered plan. Maybe that's the last one. Is that the last plan?
That is the last.
That's the last one.
Yep.
Bob, do you want to say anything before we turn it over to the board? All right. Well, I appreciate the board's time tonight, and we're certainly want to hear from you. We want comments, suggestions. So, we'll turn it back to Mr. Thorpe at this point, and we're here if you have any questions, you want any clarification, if you want us to go into anything we haven't talked about, we'll be happy to do that.
Thank you. I appreciate the proposed work and the level of detail that you've provided us in terms of assessing the architectural scope, and then additionally the landscape and civil scopes are presented thoroughly as well. So thank you on behalf of all of that information and the thought that's clearly gone into dealing with the context. Certainly a large structure, and I appreciate the attention to dealing with the South Broad Street frontage and overall massing. A good deal to digest, but I have to say overall I'm very encouraged to see the way that you've handled the breaking up of the mass and scale and roof lines, and I think all of those are quite encouraging. And also, I appreciate the removal of the bus loop portion. Always been taken with how that sort of breaks up the pedestrian flow and always leaves somebody stranded between the roadways there. So the sidewalk is obviously, a big improvement there. Not to get into the details too quickly, but could you just point out where the dumpster and all of that area is? I didn't see it labeled on here.
It's on the civil plan, but there's a dumpster enclosure next to building 2, we're calling it, and building 1 is on this northwest side.
Oh, is that in the northeast corner?
Right, yeah, this is where the cursor is.
There are 2 rectangles that have a cross across them.
Got it. That was a detailed question. And then you're proposing to screen the existing houses that are in the sort of the north area, correct? I'm having a hard time reading the planting list. Text is so incredibly small that it's a little hard, but I think I can work my way through that. Just a passing comment about the parking count. Did you say that you're exceeding the allotted parking?
Well, when we use the standard for 1 space per unit and having 1 space per 4 units for guest parking, we exceed the parking, but the standard for residential is 2 spaces. So we're asking for relief from that requirement for 2 per dwelling unit, 1 per dwelling unit.
I think maybe a different way of explaining that is we are trying to mirror what the PV5 or the Pawcatuck Village Zone requires, which is less than you would need for parking elsewhere in the community. But one of the things we have the ability to do, it being an 830G, is we can set our own parking standard. So we want to make sure there's safe and adequate parking for residents and guests. But that's what we're designing at. We're following a model, but again, we can propose anything we want for this project.
Yeah, understood. No. You can see graphically how much space is given up to parking, and there's so little left over, and that tree spacing and configuration is critical to the overall sort of fitment into the neighborhood, and also to give the building some scale and some filtering. So I would say that's, I think, very desirable to generate as much space that we have for trees, and I would rather not see more committed to parking at this point. I'd love to open it up to other board members' comments on the architectural as well as the landscape scopes here.
Hi, this is Brett Perkins. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm never sure which device I'm speaking to, so. Wondering about the eastern entrance to, or what would be perceived on Route 1, the northern entrance to the site. There's quite a steep grade there before as you come into that, and basically a blind turn there in the road. You might want to reconsider that. The entrance is kind of in the scale of the building is kind of hard to understand from the roadside. For building 2, I mean, only because I see a sidewalk going up to it can I understand that's where you might enter the building. But I thought maybe an awning or something there would probably be, give it some sort of understanding of where you enter the building. So what happens to the bus stop? Does the bus not stop at this place anymore? Or?
We intend to, promote the bus stop as an amenity. There's a bus shelter there presently. We'll enhance that, repair it as needed. But the bus could pull side of the road on Brookside Way to allow for loading of the bus and then keep going. To have a bus turnaround to make a 180 would be not feasible to begin with. So
I wouldn't expect that it would only stop on one side of the road. So, but I mean, in the spirit of sustainability, public transportation does need to be promoted. So
yes, I agree.
In the height of the building in relationship to the other structures to the south, because that's, I think, where taller buildings are. What is the relationship to the roof line to the adjacent buildings? I see it's almost 50 feet.
Can Paul answer that?
Yes, that is correct. We are 50 feet as we move down past Stonington Police Station. That's got some height to it. And the following building there, the manufacturing building, is I don't know the exact heights. As elevation climbs on Route 1, so do those buildings. And certainly Stonington High School. I don't have those exact figures, but we're currently in the neighborhood of the same scale.
I would disagree with you. I'd say you're probably substantially higher by maybe a floor and a half, but whatever. But I would, I think you might want to know that.
Okay.
Could you, on the landscape side, what is the relationship to hardscape to softscape? Does any have a calculation to that end? I know it's a factor of parking and there's probably not much you can do about it, but it is a very, very densely parked site.
Do we have that? We don't have that calculation, do we? No.
Okay. So I was trying to read your tree schedule, your planting schedule. It's so tiny, and I had my magnifying glass out, and even with that, I could barely make it out. But it looks like maybe they're 12-foot tall trees. What look like the more mature trees. So, what kind of calipers are we talking about initially?
Probably 2.5 inch, maybe.
They'll barely survive the winter.
No, that's standard. I mean, you can get up 2.5 to 3 inch caliper, but 2.5 inch caliper. And for something like a sweet gum, initially you want a smaller one because they don't necessarily transfer well the larger sizes.
Okay, they're going to be very small and they're going to suffer from the plow. So, okay.
We can look at adjusting sizes.
I have one more question, I think. No, I think that's it. But I would definitely take a good hard look once you do your traffic study to the entrance to the north. That's a very, very dangerous corner. Because the old donut shop across the way there has their entrance to the to their shop at the southern end because of the tightness of that corner.
We appreciate your comments, and certainly we'll take those under advisement, and particularly the ones regarding traffic. And we certainly have every intention of maintaining the bus terminal, the bus stop at this location. It's of great importance to our existing residents in Brookside 1, and we expect it'll be of great importance to the residents of Brookside 2 as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is Leslie Driscoll. I've got a couple of comments and a question. When I look at the section on page 20, you have floor to ceiling heights of 8 feet 9 inches and so forth. What's your finished ceiling height once you add in the finished floor and the ceiling? Because these seem high. Is that just to give a more sense of volume because the apartment square footage might be small?
Leslie, mostly to get the taller windows and the transom. They'll finish off about 8'9". We do have enough space within the trusses, but these are all self-contained units, and it's to embellish on the windows and the transoms to make them actually 2/2 with the transoms cut the same. It definitely, it's an aesthetic thing.
Yeah, it'll feel very nice inside those apartments too. I like what I see on the exterior elevations. I like the steeper roof lines on some of those bump out sections. The looks like a 12/12 pitch maybe.
Oh, it's up there. It's
Yeah.
up there. 16.
16.
And that's typical. Yeah, 16/12 on some of the on the towers types.
Yeah.
And that's typical of the shingle style that we see in the area.
Well, I'm glad you haven't glommed up the exterior with lots of little architectural doodads. It's very, it's classic, and there's a simplification to it and a rhythm that carries around. And the exterior finishes are probably fine. I'm just reminded of the brick police station and wondering if you would consider brick on that first floor band to echo what's happening across the way.
Leslie, this is Bob Gilbane. I mean, we could consider colors that might mimic that, and that's a good suggestion. We believe that building has a strong base, a middle and a top is good. Our finished ceilings typically have been 8.5 feet in our developments.
Yeah, I agree with the darker band on the bottom and then how you go upwards. And then also with the sidewalk in the front, I know the town has the sidewalk project that I'm very passionate about myself. I would just encourage you to make sure there's a snow shelf of grass strip. It looks like there might be, but I can't quite tell on the plan. But that just, puts the people a little bit back from the road and makes it a little safer for walking. But then also when the plow comes by, the sidewalks don't have to be shoveled again repeatedly. It just is a nice landscaping detail. But I think this is probably one of the best places to put one of these 830G projects, because you'll have people there who can walk to work, they can walk to school, they can walk to the shopping plaza next door, and it's it's a little bit better sited than some of the other ones around town that I've seen come before the board.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
This is Jenny Brummond. I like the 3D rendering with the just changes in massing and all the different shapes and roof lines of nice, and the moldings as well. Just two comments. I think I really like also the window fenestration. I guess the panes. It's kind of a little bit of an old-fashioned look, and going with that, when I saw the less formal drawing on your cover, and then I saw the more technical, architectural drawings inside, and you said that the balconies are really decorative. I was a little disappointed in that the decorative balconies are kind of not very noticeable. In the drawing, it looks more like a wrought iron kind of railing, which gives it even a little bit more character. Whether those false balconies could be a little more bold, just to give a little more variety to the facade, and kind of takes it almost like a seaside resort kind of a look. That's about it, I guess. Just one point on page 24 and 5, or 23 and 4 on the 2-bedroom apartments. This was just a personal thing, but how the dining is in the center, and they have the bathrooms that kind of go right off of that center point. I guess there's no way around it because it's just a very efficient sort of living unit. I guess my thought was, do all the bathrooms need to open right to the dining table? could something open to the kitchen or something, just for modesty? That was my thought. Okay, that's it.
I think that's going to be eliminated, the dining area there.
Okay.
And if I can comment on the balconies, that gives us an opportunity to put a full height door in there. So even though the actual rail itself is light in nature, you will see that the units have taller glass just on a few of those positioned areas. That your comment is very well taken. Yes.
Chris Delaney, I had a quick question about the parking. You had mentioned one parking space per unit. So I'm assuming that would even apply to a 2-bedroom unit. Is that correct?
Can't hear you.
Chris, you're muted, Chris.
I'm sorry. Yes, each unit would have one space dedicated, and then there'd be guest spaces beyond that. So a 2-bedroom would still only one space. It averages to 1.15 when you take out the 39 guest parking.
I mean, is there a thought process? I mean, I certainly, as I think Breck mentioned, encouraging public transportation, I definitely support that as well. But I mean, is there a thought process based on any past research that you guys have done on how to handle that potential overflow parking? It seems like that I could imagine that's issue spilling over into surrounding areas, having that limited parking.
Bob has a dedicated management team on site, so that could be policed, if you will. But I anticipate assigned parking.
I think the other thing is, because there's a huge trend going on right now with parking for multifamily development. And, a lot of I'm involved in most of the projects in Groton and in London that are being built right now. And what we're seeing in the marketplace is, even with 2-bedroom units, the younger generation that's coming up that's occupying these units primarily do not have the level of cars that we or our predecessor generations use as well. So, I think we're going to look carefully at our parking numbers. What we've put here is sort of as a conceptual layout. I think we heard loud and clear, to the extent that we can create green space, we want to do that. We want to make sure that the property is properly parked. But I think, there's a lot of data in this area about what the actual demand is. Just as an aside, I built 104 units several years ago in New London. It required 169 spaces for that project. And on any given weekend, there is literally maybe 115 cars, and there's just 50 spaces empty of pavement. And I think a lot of towns have gotten away from sort of over parking these types of developments because what the trend really is. But certainly a great point, something we'll look at. We want to make sure we have enough parking to satisfy our residents, but we don't want to have too much to create basically empty, impervious surface as well.
So I was trying to find the overall height. I mean, it's quite a tall structure compared to surrounding structures. I definitely appreciate that some attempt to kind of scale down the height and the architecture has been taken with the steeper pitched roof. But it does concern me a little bit that it is such a tall structure and so close to Route 1. And many of the surrounding structures are just not nearly as, at least I've got to think at least a couple stories lower. It'll certainly be an imposing structure on Route 1. I think anything that can be done with landscaping or any other attempt to try to scale down that front facade would be really helpful.
I appreciate that comment, Chris. And certainly as we move forward, we'll take a look at that. I think we've made an attempt to do that. And if we can do anything else that's within reason to address your concern, we'll see what we can do. And when we come back to you, we'll show you, hopefully a much more developed plan that's evolved.
Great.
Well, I think unless there are any other specific questions, you've heard sort of our feedback. I'd like to thank everybody for their attention on this, and thank you again for the amount of thought and consideration you've put into this proposal.
Chris, I have
look forward to the additional information on materials and any further developments that you guys undertake.
Chris, I had one last question. I thought I heard in the architectural presentation that the buildings hadn't been finalized in their siting, or they have been sited, and that we're moving forward with this site plan. Because it sort of sounded like maybe there was some question about where the buildings were currently situated, and that may move.
I think given the parking and the circulation, because of the we tried every effort to avoid dead end drives for the parking areas, and certainly the parking lot near the bus loop was dead ended because that was too close to the intersection. But I think we're pretty tight in terms of giving you making the buildings massing work the best we can. So
I think to answer your question, Breck, I think the building siting is pretty close to being locked down, if not locked down at this point. It's just a question of the design and the landscaping and how it all fits together. We've got some work to do, including the traffic study, and to look at issues like you've raised. But right now, I think you're going to see a project when it comes to planning and zoning that you're going to see two buildings in approximately the same location. Could they move a little bit one way or another? Possibly, but they're pretty close, I think.
Okay. First of all, I don't want the questioning that I asked to be considered as derogatory. There were just issues that I had come up with regards to the review of the drawings, and I think your intended use for the site is a good purpose, but I think you need some refinements. So it's
and issues of safety are our number one concern. So rest assured that we will have answers to all those things as we go through the true engineering process that includes both civil and traffic. But we appreciate your comments and certainly didn't take them in any kind of derogatory manner.
Thank you, William.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you in the coming months and come back after we've made our application and present to you the plan that we've settled on. But thank you for the input. I think it was really valuable. I appreciate the time you took tonight to meet our team and look forward to working with you in a spirit of collaboration going forward.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further business, I guess we have review of the draft minutes from the 14 December 2020 meeting. Any comments? Corrections, modifications?
I read them over. Everything seemed to. I didn't see anything that stood out.
Yeah.
That's the same with me.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried to approve the minutes of December 14, 2020. Well, small scale project and a large scale project.
What happened with this small scale project? I'm sorry to have missed it.
Two shed scale buildings for the Pafford farm property.
No, I saw the application. I just was wondering how the questioning went.
Everyone was pretty supportive. I mean, I'm pretty familiar with that. I'm sure everyone's pretty familiar with that property, but
it's just down the street from my house. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, it seems like they're trying to match the farm stand that they have there now, which is probably the most you could expect for a couple of small structures like that.
It wasn't up for a vote, though. Neither of these projects were.
Okay.
We didn't have to
Yeah.
vote.
Preliminary review.
So will they come back again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It was Gary Hildebrand on the call?
No, we had an associate.
Okay.
What's the, maybe Keith, you know this, what's the status of that other apartment building that's where construction stopped on Route 1, kind of across the street from this?
Apparently they're just have ran into some sort of financial trouble and are stalled out. So I don't know
How
too
long does
much.
the town let that go, though? Because, the building's going to start degrading if it's not finished and occupied.
Yeah, it's going to mold up soon enough.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure how much we can do, but it can't sit like that forever.
I mean, does the town ever go back to the owners and say you have to this much time to finish the building or sell it to someone else who will?
I mean, we couldn't force a sale. I'm imagining that if there is some issue with the building like that, the building official might be able to force something. But if they keep it in good shape, I don't know how much of a hand we'd have in that.
Keith, were they given tax credits with regards to building the building?
Not from the town.
From the state?
They might have from the state.
Do you think that we could talk to the state representative to see if they can put some pressure on them with regards to their tax abatements?
That's a good idea. Definitely look into that.
Yeah, some stick has got to be thrown out there, or else they're going to just lally for as long as they can, I would imagine.
Right.
Breck, are you talking about Greg Howard, like contacting Greg Howard about it?
I was thinking about the one of the state representatives, either the senator or I don't know who are. Yeah, I guess it would be Howard now.
Yeah, Greg Howard or Heather Summers in the Senate.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would love to see it finished. It seems that the other one is rented up fairly well, so.
Right.
I think the other one has a 2-year waiting list for people to get on. So there is a big demand for this level of housing in town.
But yeah, I think it's becoming something we've got to look more into here.
Those are deep pockets that we're just talking to just then, so we would never have to worry about that with Gilbane,
No.
Right.
With billions of dollars on annual construction.
All right, well, we have a motion to adjourn. We call it a night.
Motion to
I'll make I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good
All right.
night.
Good night.
Okay.
Good night. Thanks.